So I got to assume at this stage of the game, we all know it's fraud all the time. After listening to what took place in front of the House Oversight Committee yesterday, hearing these people from Minnesota say, oh, yeah, fraud. Everybody knows there's fraud. Oh, Tim Walz knows there's fraud. Your mom knows there's fraud. That side piece your dad has, she knows there's fraud. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I not supposed to tell? Gosh, now I feel terrible. Tony Katz today. What are you doing, everybody? 833-GOT-TONY. 833-468-8669. That is how you get to be a part of the show. Now, it seems that there is no interest from the political left in working on this fraud. Let's leave that to the side for right now. Let's discuss what it is that we know. What we know is that this isn't just Somali nationals. What we also know is that there's a large amount of people from Somalia who have been involved with this fraud. Two things can be true at the same time. And this is certainly true of Minneapolis. We're starting to see this in other places, and there's connections to the United Nations. You're like, my gosh, this goes on for forever. It's nuts. But of course, it is not just people from Somalia. Now, you might have some people who have a connection to Somalia. They might have a heritage from Somalia, but they are American citizens. In all situations, we start with the basics. What is the fraud? Who is committing the fraud? We prosecute the fraud. People who are American citizens go to jail. People who are not American citizens get deported with their families. Gone. No. The child was born here. They get to stay here. That stuff is over. That conversation, of course, is the anchor baby conversation. And we have now proven, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that we cannot condone such activity. If you are not a citizen, you will be deported. If you are a citizen and found guilty, you will go to jail. That's true no matter where the heritage is. Just so we understand each other. The fraud is so well known as members of they don't call it a General Assembly in Minnesota, do they? You had a series of Minnesota state representatives speaking in front of Congress, and they brought up what happens when you try and be a whistleblower in this situation, when you try and say, hey, there's a serious and unique problem here.
Ms. Rarick, you spoke about the retaliation that many have experienced in light of trying to expose the fraud and the corruption happening in Minnesota. Can you speak more to that and what people are experiencing when they try to sound the alarm on what's happening?
Right. So that retaliation has been going on for quite some time. If you look at what Faye Bernstein said in a news report or Newsweek article back in 2019, it started for her, and she was heavily investigated. She was actually moved to a different state agency. She was, retaliated against in every kind of way you can think. What's happened now is retaliation has escalated, and now it's you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your home, we're going to track your children, we're going to make sure that you can't get a job anywhere else in state government. And for Minnesota, that means probably Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Duluth, Rochester. You can't get a job anywhere that Democrats control.
I have played this for you, and you have heard this maybe for the first time, that the Democrats, if you point out the fraud, try and take your job, try and get you to lose elected office if you're in office, come after you, come after your kids, and you won't be able to get a job anywhere where Democrats are in power. I played this for you. You might have heard this for the very first time. Now the question is, show of hands, how many of you hearing that for the first time 100% believe that's true? That's everybody. That's everybody. I can see you in your car Don't ask. Don't ask. I have a network, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about the Jews with their space lasers. She wasn't too far off. It's optics, baby. It's basically, turns out that movie, Real Science, with the young Val Kilmer, more on the nose than you think. I said too much. It was Real Genius. It wasn't Real Science. It was Weird Science with Anthony Michael Hall and Wyatt, and then Bill Paxton, who ended up being like the slug guy. That was Weird Science, and then it was Real Genius with Val Kilmer and that other kid who I never knew who that actor was, and I don't think he did anything again. And that is my 80s lore of movies, everybody. Everyone believes it. Everyone knows that this is the way it works. The fraud is the fraud, and you be quiet about it. If you mention the fraud, well, you're just a racist, and you're just an Islamophobe, and you're just a xenophobe, and you're just this. Let's start where we need to start in this whole conversation, because we gotta make sure that we are always on the same page. And so, allow me to give a little bit of practical advice, to the extent that they will listen, to the progressive left. Once you see this, you realize, for the progressive, how strong it is not to be called a racist. Now, I really should get Evan Sayet back on the show, because his original dissertations about this, whether we're talking about his book, The Kindergarten of Eden, whether we're talking about his speech to Heritage, which I think to date still, and this was 20 years ago, the most widely viewed speech Heritage has ever had, called Regurgitating the Apple. These conversations, this book, it gets into the idea that there is nothing worse in the eyes of the progressive, nothing more horrifying than being bigoted. It is the greatest sin. It might very well be the original sin. Bigotry is just so wrong. I see them saying that, and they apply that to being able to make decisions. What if I want to do this and not do that? Let's say you're figuring out what you're going to wear in the morning, and you got a blue shirt and you got a red shirt. If you pick the blue shirt, are you bigoted against the red shirt? By the way, that is a great Jewish joke. A mom gets her son 2 shirts for Hanukkah, a blue shirt and a red shirt. And she sees him a couple days later. He's wearing the blue shirt. And she goes, "What's the matter? You didn't like the other one?" That joke is so good. Right now, 3 rabbis laughing their faces off. You like blue, you don't like red. You like red, you don't like blue. You like green, you don't like yellow. All of these things are variations of the very same concept of bigotry. I like one thing, I don't like another thing. Or worse, the idea of ranking something. This is better than that. There was a moment, this is years ago. It was on Bill Maher's show. And Ben Affleck was the guest. And I have known, certainly I knew at that time, that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, although I don't know about Damon now. Damon seems like a guy you could stand and have a beer with. Ben Affleck refused to admit that communism was worse for people than capitalism. Was that it? Like he couldn't even convince himself. He couldn't bring himself to say that communism was bad, because to do so would be to highlight one thing and put down another thing. It would be to be bigoted. That's what moral relativism is all about. And not what about is a moral relativism. Oh, well, yeah, Iran does kill their citizens, but look what we do in the U.S. In the U.S., you could be a radio host telling Jewish jokes based in the Midwest, and people say, you know, that Tony Katz is pretty funny. There's a giant difference. My God. There's a huge difference. I was going to tell a joke there, but I realized that was probably in poor taste. Can you imagine? That was the joke I decided was in poor taste. The very concept of bigotry is the thing that they are most opposed to. And because they are opposed to it to a point of cult-esque fervor, they can't now be rational. If one thing cannot be better than another thing, well, then they cannot be good judges of what is right and what is wrong. So they don't get into right and wrong. They get into what? Oppressed and oppressor. So now they move into Marx and Marxism, the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, the 99% and the 1%, as Barack Obama put it. And so when we talk about, for example, a group like ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, it's not that they're applying the law because they don't believe that the law should exist because no person can be illegal. And now we are oppressing people who are in the country when they shouldn't be. See how that works? They start with a premise that it's wrong to remove people in the country illegally because the country is wrong, because no person should be illegal. Now, the fact that if you can't just walk into other countries and they would throw you in jail for doing so is inconsequential. They take away the moment of a recognition between right and wrong. Unless, of course, when you do it because you're always wrong because you don't agree with them, which is going to bring us to a conversation by a woman by the name of Melanie Phillips about reason. And it's stuff that we've talked about a million times, but I think she did a beautiful job in discussing it. I want to share it with you. The reason they allow the fraud to take place in Minnesota is because if they didn't, and we already know this as fact, we know that this was told to them, the Somalis, those connected, will call you racist. And they were so afraid of being called racist because there's nothing worse than being called racist. There's nothing worse than being called bigoted. They said nothing. Better to say nothing than be called bigoted. Just write the check. And you know what? We're probably doing something good for these poor people who don't know how to do things our way. So we'll let them do things their way. You understand the bigotry involved in that, right? How dare we expect these people to live our life? We have to let them do it their way because they don't know any better. That is sometimes described as the concept of soft bigotry. Soft bigotry, I'll give you a really interesting example of it that maybe you haven't thought of before, is have you ever been in a Home Depot, a Lowe's, a Menards, one of those big box stores, and the signage in any store, I don't mean to pick out those three individually or specifically, where the signage is both in English and Spanish? Why is it in Spanish? For what reason is it in Spanish? Why? Because as a society, what we have said out loud is people who come from Spanish-speaking countries aren't capable of learning English, and they shouldn't have to learn English, and we should bend over for them because they're not capable. That's the soft bigotry. That's what they're saying. I didn't make the freaking sign. My signs are in English, boo-boo. I live in the United States. Learn the language, love it. English is the language of freedom. Hot damn, that's the truth. But people make the signs in Spanish. You got to have the form in Spanish. You got to have the this in Spanish. They don't think people who speak Spanish can learn English. That's soft bigotry. You're calling these people stupid. I think it's disgusting, and maybe we should stop doing that. But they don't want to be called bigoted. So they say nothing. And in Minnesota, they said nothing. And you better believe that I'm with you, and we both agree that there's no doubt that what these state reps are saying is true. That when people called it out and were whistleblowers, they weren't going to get a job. They were going to get vilified. And yes, their kids were going to get outed, doxxed, maybe worse. Intimidation at its worst. There isn't a mafia family alive that went after the kids. This is the tip of the iceberg. The fraud is everywhere. We're hearing about it in Ohio. We're hearing about it in California. We're hearing about it in Washington State. Alex Berenson keeps talking about Medicaid costs in my beloved Indiana. We must be relentless. We don't elect people who will not jail the fraudsters and get us back our cash, who won't throw people out of the country. And I'm telling you, this is a midterm subject. This is an every term subject. I, via Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, am guaranteed a republic form of government. And that doesn't happen when there's this kind of fraud or any kind of fraud. And I will damn well get what my Constitution affords me. No one who is elected can be considered safe if they are not willing to go after the fraudsters. And safe means electorally. Oh, you still have the protection of the Constitution that you're not willing to uphold, protect, and defend. Lucky you, elected official. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Oh, Lord. There's nothing like a guy yelling at you while he's flying a Palestinian flag on his Twitter bio. There really isn't. There really isn't. Guys, good to be with you. Tony Katz Today. I am I don't want to say I wasn't ready for the start of the show, but that was creepy the way I did it. I was looking at myself in the camera. I was like, I shouldn't do that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is the SpaceX Tesla lighter. It's a lighter, people. Get your mind out of the... See that? How does it sound? Sounds like a rocket taking off. That's, I think, exactly the point. Aha, Elon. I get it now. Oh, my God. Did I just light my hair on fire? I'm telling you, it's a messed up kind of morning. No, it's good. It's good. It's not. It's this. It's my hair is not smoking. I'm good. That was awesome. No, if it was, I'd smell it. Yes. I do hairspray before the show. Yeah, that was outrageous. I may have to clip that. That was funny. Hold on a second. With all due respect, Joel, I admit that was funny, and I admit that I'm already a little bit off. but no one gets to tell me how to light a cigar. Just no, Joel, we could be friends. No. I forget how big the flame is on this. That's all it was. The chat room is telling me that I don't know how to light a cigar. Admittedly, I did almost light my hair on fire just then. Tony Katz today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. I have the SpaceX lighter, the Elon Musk lighter, and it looks like a rocket ship, and it sounds like a rocket ship. That's the lighter. It's crazy. And so I was a little like out of sorts today, and I lit it, and I was just touching it up while I was puffing on it, right? And I'm using two hands, so I had it in my mouth, and I forgot how far the flame goes up, and I felt it. I felt it on the forehead and in the hair, and we almost had a very good viral video that I'm thankful did not take place and did not happen. Very, very thankful. Meanwhile, you have Kristi Noem, and I've got some more to share from her in a little bit. Kristi Noem having a press conference where she was discussing the shooting that took place regarding Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Minnesota.
To continue those conversations so we can work together.
Yes. Director Russo spoke about how this operation happened discreetly under the cover of darkness, and that's how it should be, which is in contrast to what happened in Minneapolis yesterday. You said
What do you mean in contrast?
That was very, not very much not
because of the protesters and the violent criminals that were attacking our law enforcement. If you remember in that operation, what happened was our officers were out trying to get a car stuck out of the snow when they were surrounded and assaulted and blocked in by protesters that were inciting.
The officer was following his training.
He did follow his training because of an individual that was
point blank into a driver's window. Is that part of the training? How is that self-defense?
This is an experienced officer who followed his training, and we will continue to let the investigation unfold into the individual and continue to follow the procedures and policies that happen in these use of force cases. But let's remember the events that surrounded what happened yesterday on that tragic situation was that these individuals had followed our officers all day, had harassed them, had blocked them in. They were impeding our law enforcement operations, which is against the law. And when they demanded and commanded her to get out of her vehicle several times, she did not. So we'll continue to allow this process to unfold and recognize that these law enforcement officers every single day put their lives on the line. They go out and do their jobs. They go out and
terrorists, though, without an
But
the calling her a domestic terrorist, I'm going to address that in a little bit. But the left immediately want to call ICE murderers and Gestapo. Seems kind of obvious they want ICE agents to get harmed. And I think it's very acceptable to look at the actions of that woman yesterday. And I think there should be an investigation. Why can't we have the investigation? Why immediately to the attack? We'll discuss. This is Tony Katz today. Thank you. Yeah. Joel, listen to me carefully. If you think that I should be dipping my cigar in brandy, I think that's adorable. I know I shouldn't even engage with this, but it's just it's not even trolling. It's insane. Just stop. Get into good stuff here, would you? Right? There's nobody on planet Earth who gets to tell me about smoking a cigar. There are people who know more cigars about cigars than I do, but no one. Go enjoy. You need a cigar in your life. This is the Master Blends 3 right here. This is the Robusto, just a simple, easy smoke for the show right here. There is a bunch more to get to. I've got Trump on institutional investing. I want to get into that. What about George Burns? George Burns is dead. That's a great routine. He did. I know George Burns couldn't teach me at this stage about how to smoke a cigar. You do you, George. You do you. No. Coming back is a weird thing with Cubans because Cubans have had their own issues and have fallen off, and the market share lost in Europe has been really large, 30+%, because they've had troubles with the growing and troubles with the rolling. People have, it's fallen out of fashion. They don't know as much, and there's no money in it for the Cuban people, so they don't really do it because it's a communist hellscape. And so you've had these small boutique companies really gain market share in Europe, where Cubans are outrageously popular. So if there is a comeback, it's not going to be to where it was. Also, when you take a look at what happened when Castro took over, and these people have fled. They fled with Cuban seed. And they started growing this seed in Honduras and in Nicaragua and other places. And that seed, they learned how to cultivate it. They learned how to better engage with it and grow it. So now you have tobacco from the Dominican, from Nicaragua, from Esteli and Jalapa and these places. That is so good. Amatepe, right? With that volcanic soil. It's so good, you don't need a Cuban anymore. You don't need it. You just don't. So I'm not saying there are still one or two Cubans that aren't the top of the line, right? A Bahique from Cohiba is still among some considered the best cigar in the world. The Monte Cristo number 2, without question, is a cigar, a Cuban that people want. But in the main, there are so many cigars to grab that have nothing to do with Cuba, that the marketplace is tougher for Cuban cigars every single day. Every single day. So with that, let's get ready for the show, shall we? Got to keep remembering, we're doing a show. Where was it on institutional investing? Steny Hoyer to retire. Steny Hoyer was Nancy Pelosi's henchman, the number 2. And he has announced that, he's done. He's finished. How old is Steny Hoyer? Steny Hoyer is 80. He's been in the House of Representatives for 40 years. 40 years he has been in the House. I'm sorry, I said 80. He's 86. Entered the House in 1981. Listen, this is Maryland, so I don't think that he is going to have, or Democrats are going to have any issue in replacing him. No one should think so. But it's for him it's age. But there've been a bunch of people walking away and retiring and doing the whole thing, saying that they've basically had enough. It's not as easy as it used to be. There's too much scrutiny. It's too difficult. It's all I know is that a woman by the name of Ilhan Omar walked in being worth like $30,000, and right now she's worth $30 million. So I have to assume that Congress pays well. Outrageously well. But now the story here is about Trump. and institutional investors. You have seen this very possibly in your own neighborhoods. What you've seen is that these companies come in and you'll get these texts. I get them, you get them, these random texts. Hey, you still interested in selling your house? We'd like to make you a cash offer. And then all of a sudden you hear the Price is Right theme. Da-da-da-da. Wait, is that Price is Right? Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I got to work this out, guys. Hold on. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, that's the end theme to Price is Right. Right? After the Showcase Showdown? Yeah, that's it. That maybe I'm right, maybe I don't know. Maybe what's the No Whammy show? Press Your Luck. Maybe I'm just doing that one. So they'll come in and say, "We'll buy your house." And so it's this investor class, and they're buying all these homes, and then they're renting them out. The problem there, as I relight my cigar, the problem there is that those people are not good neighbors. Those people want to be able to turn the dollar. I can appreciate that. And there's a real question about whether or not cities, municipalities could say, sorry, you can't sell to these people. There's a town not too far from me that put forward legislation. You can't sell to investors. Well, it's my house. I can sell it to anybody I dang well please. What are you talking crazy? I can't sell it to people. Now, by the way, I can't say Ruth is making a comment. And by the way, smart poll here. Ripping people off, Zillow is deep into the mess. These are two different things. Zillow went heavy into buying the houses, and they got screwed because the houses were not worth what they used to be worth. Well, that's part of that's investing. You ever buy high and sell low? Yeah, that's happened to me more than once. Feel bad about it. But I can't say they were ripping people off. If people agree to a price, that's not ripping people off. But then again, I'm the guy who believes that there is no such thing as price gouging. There is a price, and if the market will pay it, that's it. That's all there is. The question is, can you say we don't allow institutional buying in this neighborhood? What Trump is now saying in this piece over at the Wall Street Journal, what he's saying is Trump moves to ban big investors from buying single-family homes. And I'm telling you, I do not know if the President of the United States can do that. And certainly there's a conversation regarding what is Congress's job in this. And he's calling on Congress. This is a first for Trump. He puts out on Truth Social, I am immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes, and I will be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. I must admit, I wrestle with this. Let's start with it as a concept. Do we think that the institutional buying of homes in neighborhoods, and really, in many cases, whole neighborhoods, do we think this creates a value? I don't think it creates a value. I think that we are seeing through that maybe the market is not as honest as it should be. And we are creating artificially high prices. I have always felt this about California. Remember, I lived in California for 6 years. California was strange. Never mind, the California was strange. The housing prices were through the roof. They were nutty. And I remember my wife and I looked at buying a house in Simi Valley. So we lived in the San Fernando Valley. I lived in Chatsworth for a while, which it turns out, I didn't know this when I lived there. I rented. It's the porn capital of America. Like, that's where they make all the porn. And I'm telling you right now, I didn't see anything being made. And I also never once said, sure, I can hold that video camera. Those things never, ever, ever happen. But there was this place in Simi Valley. Oh, what made me leave? I got the radio job in Indianapolis. I wanted to do radio and I couldn't do it in LA, and there was no offerings in LA, and I was putting myself on the air and not getting paid, and I was working for free with my station in Indy, WIBC, because they had a show on a fantastic human being by the name of Greg Garrison. Greg Garrison is famous, a lawyer. He was the lawyer that prosecuted Mike Tyson for rape that took place in Indianapolis. He's the guy who put Mike Tyson in jail. That's Greg Garrison. And they were running a rerun of Garrison, and I had come out to Indy to try and get a job. I didn't get the gig. They went with somebody local. You might have heard of them, the Chicks on the Right. That's a true story. And I didn't get the job, and I called the program director, a guy by the name of David Wood, and I said, listen, I appreciate it. You went with local. You didn't use me. That's fine. But you're running a rerun of Greg Garrison from 9 to midnight. Don't put me on instead, and I'll do it for free. He said, okay. That's how I got started. I mean, I was putting myself on anywhere I could put myself on, but how I got started with the opportunity that has led me to here is that I said I would do it for free. That was it. I would absolutely do it for free. So I did it from Los Angeles. I lived in LA and I connected to the station and I did the show like that in the evenings for like 8 months. And then they offered me mornings and I thought they were nuts. And then I moved my family sight unseen to Indianapolis. That's how it all happened. I was willing to do the thing. But I was in LA and saw this house in Simi Valley. It still haunts me how incredible. It's not that the house was overly opulent, but it was beautiful. It was a ranch. But what it was the backyards, if you know anything about California housing, the backyards aren't too big. Like the land isn't too big. The houses don't have that. But there was a fence, and then the mountain went down. And it was this canyon and the mountains, and I couldn't believe that I could afford it. This was before I lost everything. And I tried to buy that house. And luckily it didn't work out, because then nothing worked out. Then everything went to bloody hell. And then I got the opportunity here, and my life has been so much better because of it. But I remember saying, this house is crazy expensive. How in the world is a mortgage company going to give me a mortgage? And the realtor and everybody else is like, don't worry about it. What do you mean, don't worry about it? And what I realized was I didn't have to worry about how I was going to afford this house. They had to worry about how I was going to afford this house. They had to make it work. The price was too high. It didn't make any sense. The market was well out of whack with reality. It was fake, false. Everybody wanted to live there? No, I think a lot of people at the time wanted to live there. I don't think everybody wanted to live there. But was that, maybe without my knowing, happening because of other forces, like, for example, this, where you have these institutional investors coming in and buying up homes? How do we get to a place where the government can say, no, you can't sell to them? Now, I understand how the government can say, no, you cannot sell to the communist Chinese. I know how that works. That's a national security conversation. How does it work that I can't sell to a company? Now, I know I see a bunch of people in the chat talking about a group like BlackRock. Okay, what if it's John's House Buying Consolidated, LLC.org? Like, what if it's something like that? And it's a group of dentists, and they're going to buy 42 houses. How do you tell me I'm not allowed to sell to them? How do you get to tell me that I, who owns my property in a nation that still has property rights because we're not controlled by Mamdani, how do you tell me I can't sell to them? And that's where I get broken, if you will. And I haven't come to a resolution on this. And I haven't heard an argument yet that makes me go, yup, that's the answer right there. Okay, now I get it. Now you've given me the piece that allows me to do the rest. Now, it's different. Carrie, welcome to the show. I appreciate it. It's different than when an HOA has a cap on the number of rentals allowed in a neighborhood, because you are buying the house in the full knowledge of what the HOA is putting down as a requirement. Now, if that should come ipso facto, well, then I have an issue with it, because who are you telling me how I can engage the use of my property? I should be able to do that. And there are also HOAs that say you can't Airbnb it and all sorts of things that come up. That's if you are already given the knowledge of what the rules are. But sticking with this, I think Trump is talking about something that people are talking about and cities are talking about, towns are talking about. I just don't know how you stop it. I do not know if we have a system to do so. Send me anything you want. I'll take the information. Tony at TonyKatz.com. Feel free. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back. Whew, Scar's giving me an issue. Happens. Tony Katz Today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. Get your tickets. Trump 1 year later, the red tie gala, the highs, the lows, how we win the midterms. I have 3 bourbons for you to try that you are going to love. We've got the food. We have got the live bands. Oh, that's right. I've got a band. You want to wear a tux and a gown? You go right ahead. You want to wear cocktail attire? You go right ahead. You want to wear a business attire? You go right ahead. You want to wear pants? Yeah, you should wear pants for this. Tickets.TonyKatz.com. It's going to be incredible. January 24th, Hyatt Regency, downtown Indianapolis. And the tickets have been on sale, and now they're actually on sale. It's very, very cool. There's a cool discount going on because of our sponsors, and I love doing it. And if you already have a ticket, don't worry. I'm going to take care of you in such a way you're going to be like, man, I got my money's worth and then some. And then some. It's going to be an incredible night of food, of drinks, of laughter, of good times. People have been asking, Tony, you're going to do cigars. Well, it's inside the Hyatt Regency. And so they don't have a place for cigars. But they might have a place I can makeshift for cigars, and I won't know it, and you won't know it until you're there. Until you are there. So tickets.tonykatz.com. And the band is not Spinal Tap. No, band is not Spinal Tap. This is a good one. This dude isn't real. It's AI, guys. Don't fall for it. Are you the dude from Twitter? Someone accused me of being AI the other day, and I said, there is nothing A about me. I am all I. I have not. This is the second time I have seen somebody do that. Wait, dude, was that actually you? No way. No way. Hey, welcome to the show, man. How are you? Dude, I thought you were gonna do like the woman on the airplane. That mother blanker is not real. She's still my favorite. Has she started an OnlyFans yet? Producer Landon, you're on OnlyFans right now. Look for it. Look for it and tell me if she's there. I know you have a lot of subscriptions. We understand. We get it. We see you, boo. We are aware of the situation that you are involved in. Producer Landon. Also, the band is not Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Here's a question. Is Frankie Goes to Hollywood still alive? I don't actually have an answer for that. So in a press conference being held by Governor Tim Walz, he wants you to know that they may be investigating the ICE agent involved in the shooting there that led to one woman being killed. But we won't ever get the truth.
To everyone, Minnesota must be part of this investigation. These are nonpartisan career professionals that have spent years building the trust of the community. There's a BCA Force Investigations Unit that was created by the legislature, by the people of Minnesota, to provide an independent, consistent, and trusted mechanism for investigating the use of force incidents involving law enforcement officers.
I favor an investigation. Did I say hello, Tony Katz? Tony Katz today? Of course they should. Just because people on Twitter are like, oh, that's a clean shoot. I think there's a lot there that would exonerate the ICE agent. It doesn't mean I want an investigation. It doesn't make me right. I want the investigation, but listen to the governor.
Minnesota has seen our share of these. And what you've seen is, and I have witnessed it during my time, that these professionals have risen to the moment. They are trusted by people. People who are not by inclination trusting of law enforcement or government have come to see the professionals at the BCA as true arbitrators that can get them justice. The unit is the result of years of scrutiny, public engagement, and bipartisan legislative action. Minnesotans have made it clear time and again they expect transparency through this process where a police officer uses deadly force.
So the governor is going down the road that his group can tell us what happened. But if ICE investigates, we won't get the truth. Is this the argument he's presenting? Because if this is the argument, it certainly does flow into our argument that the left is very, very interested in fomenting more anger against ICE and seeing ICE agents be attacked. Your group, they'll give us the answer, but that group will never get the answer. That's Governor Tim Walz, who, by the way, should resign for the fraud. The pressure should stay on. This is Tony Katz today. Now, Liberty, you tell me you want arrests. So of whom? What subject are we referring? Or just in general? Like, have you reached a level of, you know what, forget these people. I want that guy in jail, like Maroney from Johnny Dangerously. Tear down that freaking wall, tear down that freaking wall, and tear down that freaking wall. You just want people arrested. Is that, Tim Walz. Tim Walz. Okay. Gotcha. Now I understand. Yeah. I'm there, but I want everyone involved arrested. And that's where I'm with you, Liberty and Justice. How is it possible we've made this political? And I say that knowing full well. So I was on the air when COVID happened. COVID broke. In those first couple of months of doing the show during COVID, there was no escape. It was madness every day. And so it broke what? January, February, right? And so by about April, by the end of April, beginning of May, I stopped reporting the numbers to my audience because I'm like, this isn't right. We're taking somebody, one of the big examples was a guy dies in a motorcycle accident. He's on a motorcycle, he crashes, he dies, and it gets written down cause of death, COVID. What do you mean COVID? He was in a motorcycle accident. Well, you don't know that the COVID may have distracted him and caused the accident. And you were writing down COVID because you were getting paid, and it was nuts. And so I couldn't believe the numbers. And then it was, we took a virus that we should be working on figuring out together and benefiting the country, and we made it political. And I wasn't Chris Hayes, wearing my fuzzy sweater and softly crying to myself as I watched the rain fall in the street down below my Manhattan condo. But I remember in May, it was like, what kind of country are we? Exactly how broken are we? And the answer is, we are that broken. Now, it's not necessarily true of you and your neighbor. It is true in a larger macro sense. Broken society. Crazy. So here's what's happening. The radio show is in break right now. So we need to be in break. Well, we don't need to be, but we will. We'll take a quick break. I want you to smoke them if you got them. Hang loose. Kick back, relax, do all the things, and we'll be back. We will be back in just a few minutes. Stay right there. Welcome back. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Who keeps messing with my camera? I'm just a little off. Like, what is the movie where he's like, I can't see. I'm fuzzy. Is that Woody Allen? Is that Woody Allen? I can't remember right now. Can't remember if that is or isn't. Anyway, it's good to be with you. A bunch to get to. I want to break down a little bit more of this ICE shooting, and there's the flat out lie. The lie that was told by Chris Hayes. I want you to hear how it was told to a leftist audience as opposed to how it should be told. I've got that. We're going to play that clip from Melanie Phillips. I shared that. I had something else I wanted to get to. Oh, Trump pulling out. Giggity. Giggity would have been so much better, producer Landon. Damn it. You absolute fiend. Giggity would have been so much better. So I've got that, which is very, very, very interesting. Also, just do me a favor, producer Landon. It's a good time just to check any breaking news, anything that might be going on. Oh, wait a second. Oh, stop that. Do I have a briefing going on? Wait, did this happen already? No, my gosh. When did this get on the schedule? They are gearing up for a White House briefing with not only Caroline Leavitt, the vice president, J.D. Vance. Stop the presses. This was not on the schedule this morning, anywhere on the schedule. So I don't know if this is going to have to do with the ICE shooting. I don't know if it's going to have to do with something else. But somebody wanted to say a word. Somebody wants to be making the news cycle go their direction. This is absolutely purposeful. So I will bring you this the very second it comes to be. I will bring that to you. Meanwhile, I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Smoke them if you got them, because I have got them in them. I'm smoking them. I've got my very giant SpaceX lighter right here, and I will not light my hair on fire this time. Well, surprise, 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 a White House press briefing happening today. This was not on the schedule when I started the show. Tony Katz Today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. 833-468-8669. 833-GOT-TONY. That's how you get to be a part of the program. You can email me, Tony Katz, Twitter X, Tony Katz, or get in the chat room. Just go to that live stream, youtube.com/Tony Katz, Katz, and be a part of it. It is the White House briefing, the press briefing. So you got Caroline Leavitt and Vice President J.D. Vance. Now, there's a myriad of things going on that could be discussed. You have the United States, as was reported, President Trump making the announcement, pulling out of a series of organizations from the United Nations and others, saying that these organizations simply do not serve the best interest of the American people, and therefore we should not be a part of them. Now, some of them have already happened. Things like UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Work Agency for Palestinian refugees. Millions and millions and millions of dollars have been spent. And what happened? They participated in organizing October 7th. They participated in the killing of 1,200 Israelis. That's what they did. Planning took place in their offices. Of course, we shouldn't be a part of it. Now, this really brings the larger conversation of should we be involved in the UN? And I've discussed this, and some people have pushed back. No, we got to go this way or that way. And I don't think anybody who's come back at me is actually wrong, because I have said we need to end our participation in the UN and start new. Others have said, oh, we don't need to do anything. We don't need to be a part of any of this regarding the UN. Why don't we just get out of all of it? I only would argue back that I think there is something to be said about connection and collaboration with other nations, that the talking is good. Our problem is we have allowed lesser people, because of socialist wants and desires, to have powerful positions, and we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So you know what you need? New tube of toothpaste. Maybe we need to rethink that European order. Why in the world do we have France on top and the UK on top? You know who should be on top? You know who should be our ally that we're talking to? Poland. That's all. Rethinking it. So we have got this briefing, and I want to bring you as much of it straight through as possible. It's going to start any minute. So I know it's early, but we're going to take the break now so I can bring you as much of this as I can, because it could be J.D. Vance talking about the pulling out of these organizations. It could be that you had this Venezuelan tanker, oil in it, sanctioned oil, that was getting an escort. With the escort was a Russian submarine. As Axios reported, in the vicinity of this tanker, like somehow they were just going to keep the oil as if we weren't going to pay attention. And what did the United States do? The U.S. Coast Guard took the tanker. So did the Russians somehow not think that we were serious about all this? Somebody's asking, are we about to see the move of a carrier group to the coast of Colombia? We already know that Colombia is on the president's naughty list. Is this a conversation about Iran, where you have the leader of the Iranian military threatening a preemptive strike against the United States? They're a nation right now where the protests are going on with such great force. They are flailing and falling apart. They couldn't tell that we were coming to engage a bombing raid against the nuclear facilities of Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordo. And now what are they doing? They're acting tough, like them being tough means anything. This could be about the shooting with ICE. This could be about the attack that happened at his house in Cincinnati. It could be he just wants to say, hey, guys, just want you to know, it's been about a year since we've been in office, and we won, and Kamala lost, and then he walks off stage. I don't know, but I'm going to bring it to you as much as I can in full. Stay right there. Press briefing with Caroline Levitt and the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Was not on the list. Every morning and an hour before the show, really 2 hours, C-SPAN is up. By the way, what does it take to do a radio show? Being on C-SPAN 2 hours before you're on the air. I'm always looking. I'm always checking. Wasn't anywhere. So when something pops up, you realize that it's one of two things. It is an announcement of something to move the news cycle, or it is a reframing to capture the news cycle. Right? It's one or the other. So it could be about something where they want to move from here to here. Well, we may have voted for them. I voted for them. But politicos are politicos. Nothing has changed in that world. So the idea of them, wanting to reframe something or reset something or gain the advantage of something, that's what the bully pulpit is for. This isn't new. So they want to either reset or they want to move focus completely. That's what I have found. This isn't hey, the vice president's just here to answer your questions. That's not, it's not it. 1,000% not it. So this is groovy. Absolutely groovy. Also, if you follow me on Twitter X at Tony Katz, some very, very angry trolls out there every day. Same posts, same everything. I don't know what they think. They haven't gotten us to stop yet. So if you want to engage with them, go right ahead. It's always fun. Let me just put this out on X. Come on out. Come on out. Now's the time. I don't know what they're taking so long for. Good. All right. What else have I missed? What else is going on? Anything else I should be addressing? I'm just waiting on this right now. The ghost of George Burns is not responsible for moving my studio camera. That is not true. The ghost of George Burns is looking at Gracie and saying, "Want to go again?" If George Burns is wasting his time with me, George Burns is doing it outrageously wrong. Also, I always knew one day that this radio show would turn into a conversation about the ghost of George Burns. "30 seconds. You got it. You got it right there. Got it. Got it. Well, if Hakeem Jeffries wants to tell me that there's no evidence, there must not be evidence.
There is no evidence that has been presented to justify the shooting of an unarmed woman, resulting in her unnecessary death.
There are few more offensive people than Hakeem Jeffries. Of course, that changes from day to day. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. He's talking about the shooting involving an ICE agent in Minneapolis. I want you to hear that again.
No evidence that has been presented to justify the shooting of an unarmed woman, resulting in her unnecessary death.
Now, I've got a little bit more here. I'm curious if he at least admits that she was blocking traffic, didn't listen to the police, and then was seen driving as an agent could see it at him.
Kristi Noem, the so-called Secretary of Homeland Security, is a stone cold liar who has zero
Stone cold liar. And wait, what do you mean so-called?
is a stone cold liar who has zero credibility on this issue or on any other issue.
If you make this guy speaker, you will regret it for forever. So-called Secretary of Homeland Security? That's just nuts. Everything that happens, if you watch it, is about a dismissal. You know, they talk about, look what these Republicans are doing to our institutions. Look what they're doing to the institutions. So-called, no. She's the Secretary of Homeland Security. You disagree with her. You see the difference? Alejandro Mayorkas was the Secretary of Homeland Security, and he was blanking awful. He got impeached. Now, Chuck Schumer's Senate wouldn't hold a trial. Remember that. Remember that all too well. But no one ever said he was the so-called. And here, like this is a comment I just got on the socials. Someone's calling me full of blank. It's a comment that's actually on the live stream. The woman wasn't armed. That can't be justified. Kristi Noem is a joke. Cosplay. Hold on a second. You argue that the woman wasn't armed. The woman was driving a vehicle that weighs thousands of pounds and had horsepower. Now, I did not say that the shooting was a good shoot. I did not say that there couldn't have been other ways this could have been handled. But we can't somehow avoid the fact that she was in a vehicle, blocking traffic, did not listen to law enforcement, backed the car up, and then started driving forward before she turned. We also should note that because it was icy, the wheels did spin. If she had traction from the beginning, does she drive forward another 20 feet, hitting the agent? Couldn't the agent have thought that? This is what an investigation is for. Your problem, Pamela. Hi, Pamela. Welcome to the show. You're chock full of emotion. And with all due respect, I don't have any time for your emotion. Maybe save that for your henpecked husband. Those of us of a rational mind want to know what happened. And yes, I do agree, chat room. He did get hit, but let's make sure we're defining the terms properly. We saw that one of the agents did get swiped. That is different than getting run over. And if the truck, if the SUV had been able to have its traction, that guy could have been run over. Is that what we wanted? You argue we didn't want the shooting, and I don't disagree with that. I didn't want the shooting either. But are we not going to discuss what this woman did in the process and the blame that may very well belong to her in it? And I am not discounting that this guy, this agent, maybe in an investigation, no, you should have done this, that, and the training says this and that, you should have done this and that. I don't know. And neither do those just commenting on social media because they're angry, because they are filled with rage. You hate Trump more than you like being normal, and you can't see through that. You cannot even begin to allow yourself the opportunity to think about this rationally. Well, that's on you. Me, I'm only going to do this rationally. And when I see Hakeem Jeffries make this radical statement, so-called, he's done this before, so-called Secretary of Homeland Security. Like, I would like to see the House move against him. I would like to see the House move against him. On the live chat there, the chat on the live stream. Stop interfering and no one will get hurt, period. Now, ain't that something? Thank you. I thought I was the only person engaged in this conversation. Clearly not. I am not saying the woman deserved to be shot. That's what an investigation is for. But could we, at the very least, as rational people, could we say that if this woman wasn't blocking traffic, none of this would have happened? Because I believe we can say such a thing. Can't we at least say that if this woman had listened to the authorities and stopped, gotten out of the car, that this wouldn't have happened? We have two opportunities to recognize that there were actions taken by the driver where if she had just done something else, this wouldn't have happened. This brings us, and let's keep an eye on the C-SPAN feed there, producer Landon, for when the vice president comes out with Caroline Leavitt. I wanted to share this with you. This is Chris Hayes from MS Now, Ms. Now. It's so embarrassing. I want you to hear how he explains what happened to a leftist audience on Stephen Colbert's show.
That the president has sort of declared one of his occasional occupations of an American city that he feels is excessively liberal. He's done.
That's not true. The president of the United States was elected to secure the border and remove illegal immigrants. They are breaking the law, and he's doing his job. This is what Americans voted for. It's not occupying of leftist cities. What a gross thing to say. Now, if you want to argue that leftist cities are also sanctuary cities and are totally fine with illegal immigration, supportive of it, you would be accurate, Chris Hayes. But let's continue.
On this with Los Angeles, he's done it with Chicago, he's done it with Portland. There was a surge of immigration enforcement directed to Minnesota. This morning, there was a post by DHS about Good Morning Minnesota. And these agents were attempting some sort of ICE raid, not dissimilar from many we've seen across the country.
If DHS was saying Good Morning Minnesota, that was DHS letting you know that they were there. It wasn't clandestine. It wasn't in the dark. They were very open about it.
The woman in question, her name is Renee Good. She's 37 years old. She was in a car parked on the street in a residential neighborhood about a mile from where George Floyd was murdered. And she was in the car. Several ICE agents came up.
Real quick. The left is desperate for a George Floyd 2.0. But I want to be clear. I have never once been okay with the actions of the officer involved with George Floyd. George Floyd was not killed by that officer's knee. I can't remember his name right now. George Floyd was killed by the drugs in his system. That's not me saying that. That's the data saying that. Everything we were told about George Floyd and how they were able to engage the emotions was nothing about facts. I do not support what the officer did, and that other officers didn't say, okay, get off him like that. Insane. But George Floyd is dead because of the drugs in his system. Let's continue. The left wants another George Floyd riot.
Up to her. It's unclear from the two videos that I've watched numerous times whether they said to get out of here or get out of the car. It sounds like they said get out of the car. An ICE agent approached the car. She appears on both angles of the video to be first backing up and then trying to basically drive her car away from these armed men who are coming to accost her.
No. This is Chris Hayes not telling the audience that she was blocking traffic. Chris Hayes not being honest about what was taking place. Chris Hayes saying it's okay if law enforcement says step out of the car for you to say no. You don't have to listen to law enforcement. It's like Senator Mark Kelly saying, hey, military, you don't have to listen to the president. They are all in favor of not listening to authority, unless, of course, they're telling you have to get the vaccine or you can't have your job or get on an airplane or go into a museum. She backs up. She isn't just driving away. At least maybe that's not how the ICE agent took it. And I didn't know you could just be like, sorry, copper, and drive away. He continues.
One of the ICE agents is positioned himself right at the front corner of the car. He proceeds to fire 3 or 4 shots from extremely close range into the driver's side of the car.
It was extremely close range because the car started coming towards him.
The first shot from head on and the next 3 with him at a 90-degree angle. You could see it in the freeze frame. The gun is like this and the open window is like this. So he's...
What freeze frame? What freeze frame are you talking about?
Out of the way of the car. She loses consciousness and the car heads into a lamppost where it hits. Reports indicate that she was without medical attention for between 10 to 15 minutes. There's reporting on the scene that indicate that a doctor attempted to give CPR and was stopped. Her partner was in the car, as was her dog, and stuffed into the front seat were a number of stuffed animals that belonged to her 4-year-old daughter, who has now lost her mother.
Now, the partner was not in the car. The 6-year-old daughter was not in the car. I know nothing of the dog, nor do I know anything of whether or not medical was not allowed at the scene. I do know that I saw the videos where I said, call 911. I don't know if she lost consciousness or she was dead at the moment. The awe you hear doesn't exist if the ICE agent had been run over, which is really gross stuff. Why don't you tell everybody what really happened? And then let them make the decision for themselves. You don't trust them? No, what you want is the narrative, not the story. And that is ugly stuff. It's why the mainstream media can't be trusted. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. Ken, I hear you, but it's not on C-SPAN yet. It should be any second, I believe, and I will take it right to the good people at C-SPAN. Yeah, I know, but I don't have it on C-SPAN yet. So I'm okay with being a little delayed by about 10 seconds right there. By the way, why did the officer jump in front of the car? Eddie, you're not engaged in an honest argument there. You're not. You're not engaged in an honest argument there. There we go. Now, all right, so I was a little delayed there. So let me now get to this presser right here. Let me bring this up. Actually, let me back up a little bit.
Entire administration stand fully behind the heroic men and women of ICE and will always uphold law and order in the United States of America. The deadly incident that took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister left-wing movement that has spread across our country, where our brave men and women of federal law enforcement are under organized attack. Right now, immigration and customs enforcement officers are facing a 1,200% increase in assaults, a 3,200% increase in vehicle rammings, and an 8,000% increase in death threats. ICE agents are faithfully enforcing federal law to protect the safety of the American people by removing criminal illegal aliens from our country, which is exactly what nearly 80 million Americans elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to do. Radicals in the Democrat Party are furious over this. They don't want our border secured or criminal illegal aliens being removed. As a result, Democrats are impeding immigration enforcement operations daily, creating extremely heightened and dangerous circumstances that make it nearly impossible for the men and women of law enforcement to simply do their jobs. Democrats are calling to defund federal law enforcement agencies who are protecting public safety. And Democrats are calling to abolish ICE and defund the police. That will never be allowed to happen under this president and vice president. The Trump administration will redouble our efforts to get the worst of the worst, criminal illegal alien killers, rapists, and pedophiles off of American streets. The Department of Homeland Security will continue to operate on the ground in Minnesota, not only to remove criminal illegal aliens, but also to continue conducting door-to-door investigations of the rampant fraud that has taken place in the state under the failed and corrupt leadership of Democrat Governor Tim Walz. Taxpayers have been ripped off to the tune of billions of dollars in this one state alone, and that is going to end, and people are going to be held accountable. The Trump administration has activated thousands of federal agents, doubled the number of U.S. attorneys in the DOJ office in Minneapolis, and surged resources to hold fraudsters accountable and demand justice for law-abiding American taxpayers and citizens across our country. And that's what brings the vice president out here with me today to discuss all the Trump administration is doing and to make an additional important announcement on this front. So please, Mr. Vice President, will be joining us now.
Thank you.
Hold right there. Let the radio audience come back and we'll take this directly. So the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, joins Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, in the White House briefing room. Tony Katz today, good to be with you. Caroline Leavitt, starting by saying that the administration has the backs and stands with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. ICE agents are under attack. They're going to stand with ICE. This is why this president was elected, to remove illegal immigrants from the streets and to make the streets safe. Tony Katz, as I said, good to be with you. So the vice president now comes out. I hit pause. I'm like, all right, vice president's going to speak. Let's hear what he has to say, whether it's about what happened with ICE or any other subject.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I want to echo some of what Carolyn said about what we're doing to combat the rampant fraud that exists in our immigration system, thanks to failed politicians and thanks to people who allowed the American taxpayer to be taken advantage of for far too long. I think it's important to understand why this matters to the American people. I am a father of 3 young kids, a lot of people in my generation. What is that going on there? Is that normal? Okay. CNN installed this broken camera just to throw me off my game, but it's not going to work. So here's the simple fact here.
That sound, that clicking.
If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others. Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number 2, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with. We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud so that people who need food benefits can get them, but illegal aliens and other fraudsters don't. We have over 1,500 subpoenas that the Department of Justice has issued to get to the heart of the fraud ring. We've done almost 100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, is we are creating a new assistant attorney General position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud. Now, of course, that
Why doesn't
person's
the Attorney
efforts will
General have
start
this?
and focus primarily in Minnesota, but it is going to be a nationwide effort because, unfortunately, the American people have been defrauded in a very nationwide way. I want to thank a couple of people for their cooperation, in particular Pam Bondi, our Attorney General. First of all, for getting a lot of resources to Minneapolis to start to investigate and prosecute this fraud, really at an industrial scale. We've never seen fraud.
I don't mind them going after it. Do I feel weird that they felt like they had to create a new position to do it?
Uncover it, but importantly,
To me, that just it doesn't strike well. But if they're going after it, maybe my answer is, well, good. Let's go after the fraud, no matter who's committing it, no matter their side of the aisle, no matter where they're from.
Hopefully in the next few days, we'll obviously let you guys know who that is when we do it. I've talked to Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who has promised me swift confirmation for this official. But this is the person who is going to make sure that we stop defrauding the American people. Here's one final thing I'll say about this. I've heard a lot of people say that we need a special counsel to investigate fraud in the United States of America. I actually agree, and that's what this position does. It has all the benefits, all the resources, all the authority of a special counsel, but with two crucial differences. Number one, it will be run out of the White House under the supervision of me and the President of the United States. And number two, it's actually constitutionally legitimate. As you guys may know, the special counsel statute has some major constitutional questions. When we get the bad guys, we want to make sure we get them permanently and they don't have some legal technicality they can get out of, which is why we set it up as an associate attorney general. I'll take some questions, but I want to make just one final observation here. When I was actually walking out here, somebody sent me a photo of a CNN headline about what happened in Minneapolis. And this is the headline. I'm just going to read it. Outrage after ICE officer kills U.S. citizen in Minneapolis. Well, that's one way to put it, and that is the way that many people in the corporate media have put this attack over the last 24 hours. And I say attack very, very intentionally because this was an attack on federal law enforcement. This was an attack on law and order. This was an attack on the American people. The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace, and it puts our law enforcement officers at risk every single day. What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile. What that headline leaves out is that that woman was there to interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation in the United States of America. What that headline leaves out is that that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job.
A couple things here. Number one, of course, the headline is misleading. No one would expect anything less from the CNNs of the world. Number two, this goes to when Kristi Noem referred to as domestic terrorism yesterday and again today. This is the White House getting into the messaging game like the left does. And one of the things you're going to see from the left is legal observer. Something you're going to see from the left is innocent woman. The White House is saying, no, you don't get to paint this your way. We're going to paint it our way. Domestic terrorism. And we're going to come out strong against your narratives, and we're going to beat you over the head with it. What I would say to the vice president is, if this guy was hit by a car 6 months ago and had 33 stitches, that is awful and goes to how ICE agents are being attacked. But if he's sensitive, he shouldn't be on the streets. You're doing him a disservice by saying that, which is weird because in any other parlance, the left would be like, aren't you sensitive to this? Aren't you sensitive to that? In this situation, that one doesn't play. So at least doesn't for me. Now to the Q&A.
Can you comment on his rhetoric and Mayor Jacob Frey and whether they want to see unrest in Minneapolis?
Well, that's very tough rhetoric from a guy who just quit because his fraudulent activities have been uncovered. Look, Tim Walz is a joke. His entire administration has been a joke. The idea that he's some sort of freedom fighter, he's not. He's a guy who has enabled fraud and maybe, in fact, has participated in fraud. That's what this new assistant attorney general position is going to find out. I don't care what Tim Walz says. I care about getting to the bottom of this fraud for the American people, and I care about enforcing the nation's immigration laws. That's what we're going to stay focused on.
So on a related question here, I mean, Democrats have accused ICE of murder. They've said they're targeting Americans. They've told ICE to get the F out of Minnesota. this is going to stoke the fire against ICE agents, and you're talking about ICE agents right now, being concerned about them. What, if anything, is the administration going to do to make sure these folks are protected during this protest? But also, should DHS revisit their procedures here? I mean, nobody wants to see an American killed. Are there changes that need to be made to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
But first of all, of course, nobody wants an American citizen to be killed. This is absolutely a tragedy, but it's a tragedy of the making of the far left. They have radicalized a very small segment of the population, taught them that ICE agents are engaging in wide-scale violation of people's rights. What our ICE officers are doing is deporting the millions of criminal aliens that were let in during the Biden administration. So number one, we have to say, as a matter of leadership, and I would appreciate if the Democrats would join me on this, let's be honest about the fact that we have way too many illegal aliens in this country. Our ICE officers should be supported in doing their job. You're trying to actually marshal the far left lunatic fringe to engage in doxing, to try to make it impossible for them to enforce the law, and in some cases actually to engage in acts of domestic terrorism against our law enforcement officers. When you talk about different plans, different protocols, different policies, I forget exactly how you asked the question. Here's the simple fact. What we're going to do is make it easier for the American People's Administration to enforce the American People's law. And that means that Democrats have to stop rallying the mob against legitimate law enforcement operations. And that means that we are going to get tougher. And that's what this AAG position is about. We're going to get tougher at the people who are defrauding the United States by inciting violence against our law enforcement officers. That's one of the things that we're going to do. We've already started that work at the Department of Justice, but we're going to keep on doing it. And this new AAG position is going to kick that into high gear.
Vice President Vance, you just suggested that this woman who was killed, Renee Good, is part of a broader left-wing network. Who do you think is behind this broader left-wing network?
Well, it's one of the things we're going to have to figure out. But here's the way that I put it. When somebody throws a brick at an ICE agent, or somebody tries to run over an ICE agent, who paid for the brick? And who told protesters to show up and engage in violent activity against our law enforcement officers? You see, just with this most recent terrible incident in Minneapolis, you see friends of this woman's or other people who are eyewitnesses saying basically that she was there to engage in obstruction of a legitimate law enforcement operation. How did she get there? How did she learn about this? There's an entire network, and frankly, some of the media are participating in it, that is trying to incite violence against our law enforcement officers.
Well, that's undoubtedly
It's ridiculous. True. It's preposterous.
There are people
and part of our investigatory work is getting to the bottom of it.
They want the fight. They want George Floyd 2.0 riots. Unquestionable. That part is unquestionably true.
We're going to get to the bottom of that and prosecute it where we can.
Vice President, thank you for taking questions today. Is there a risk with you describing her as a deranged leftist, talking about very specific facts of these events, when an investigation is just beginning? Are you preempting a thorough investigation by drawing such conclusions? And have you received any information beyond the videos we've
creating
seen
the office in
about
the
this
AG and the
individual
DOJ is not a
specific
bad idea.
acts that has informed your point of view?
Well, first of all, the Department of Justice is going to investigate this. The Department of Homeland Security is already investigating this. But the simple fact is, what you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who was trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. Nobody debates that. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe against our law enforcement officers. I think what is clearly happening here, and it's going to keep on happening unless the Democrats wake up and say, you know what, you don't have to agree with our immigration policies. You don't have to agree with what the president or the vice president believe about immigration enforcement. But why don't you take this to the ballot box? Why don't you vote? Why don't you organize? Instead, what some of them are doing is encouraging people to get violent with our law enforcement officials. It's disgraceful, and it's got to stop.
Once again, 100% true. I'll have more of this on the flip side. Keep it right here. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. I'm gonna bring you back
You're
to the
calling
presser.
Renee
I'll
Wood
get
a
to some of the
deranged
comments
leftist
later.
and heated
Their
rhetoric that we've also heard
choice.
from officials. What responsibility do you and the president have to diffuse some of the tension that we are seeing play out in Minnesota, bring down the temperature as this investigation is unfolding?
What we have a responsibility to do is to protect the people who are enforcing the law and protect the country writ large. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, you deserve to have the people's laws enforced in the United States of America. Now, again, I'm not happy that this woman lost her life. I'm not happy that this woman was there at a protest violating the law by interfering with a law enforcement action. I think that we can all recognize that the best way to turn down the temperature is to tell people to take their concerns about immigration policy to the ballot box. Stop assaulting and stop inciting violence against our law enforcement officers. That's the best way to take down the temperature. And we're not going to give in to terrorism on this. And that's exactly what's happening. People trying to antagonize, to commit acts of violence. They throw bricks at them. Sometimes they shoot at them. Sometimes they dox them. Sometimes they go to their place of residence and harass their families. This is classic terrorism. And we cannot say that when a far left fringe is inciting violence against our brave law enforcement officials, that we're no longer going to enforce the law. That's rewarding the very people who are engaged in this garbage. The actual reward that they just got is a new assistant attorney general who is going to prosecute and investigate this stuff even more aggressively than before. Yeah.
They are very intent on calling it terrorism. That's not going to stop. They're going to create their narrative and story and paint this way the left does. The left's going to have a hard time with it.
Agencies access to the investigation. What is the precedent for that, and why shouldn't the Minnesota officials on the ground have access and evidence to work on this investigation?
First of all, I wish the state officials in Minnesota would investigate why you have so many people who are using their vehicles and other means to actually interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation. The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous. The unprecedented thing is the idea that a local official can actually prosecute a federal official with absolute immunity. I've never seen anything like that. It would get tossed out by a judge. So what I'd like Minnesota to focus on is the real issue that they're encouraging people. Minneapolis officials are encouraging people to commit violence against ICE officials. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop. Go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you. You said earlier that there's a left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and make it impossible for ICE officers to do their job. You told my colleague just now that there's an investigation going on into that network.
Yeah.
So if everything that you say is true, how does being part of that network justify being shot?
Well, being part of the network doesn't justify being shot, but ramming an ICE officer with your car, that's what justifies being shot. It's not a good thing, by the way, but when you force somebody to engage in self-defense, it's almost a preposterous question. I'm not saying that funding some of this stuff justifies capital punishment. Nobody would suggest that. The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car and that guy acted in self-defense. That is why she lost her life. And that is the tragedy. Now,
that was a silly question and a weak attempt at a gotcha, and Vance is handling that question with aplomb.
For example, if you are funding violence against our law enforcement officers, I'm not a prosecutor. My guess is that's not the sort of thing that earns capital punishment, but it should sure as hell earn you a few years in prison if you're funding the effort to try to assault our law enforcement officers. What is, I'm sorry, guys, what's going on here? You guys are meant to report the truth. How have you let yourself become agents of propaganda of a radical fringe that's making it harder for us to enforce our laws? You just asked me a question that presumed that the reason why this woman died is because she was engaged in legitimate protest. She tried to run somebody over with her car, and the guy defended himself when that happened. Next question.
The investigation is still ongoing.
I said next question.
Mr. Vice President, I mean, you presumably watched the video yourself. There's not the slightest doubt in your mind, having viewed it, that the victim, you still believe that she deliberately tried to ram him despite seeing this video?
Look, I don't know what is in a person's heart or in a person's head. And obviously, we're not going to get the chance to ask this woman what was going on. What I am certain of is that she violated the law. What I'm certain of is that that officer had every reason to think that he was under very serious threat for injury or in fact, his life. What I'm certain of is that she accelerated in a way where she ran into the guy. I don't know what was in her heart and what was in her head, but I know that she violated the law, and I know that officer was acting in self-defense. It raises an interesting point, though. Look, if people want to say that we should have a legitimate debate about, what was she really doing, right? Was she panicking when she drove into this officer, or was she actually trying to ram him? That's a reasonable conversation. What's not reasonable is for so many of you to plaster all over the media that this was an innocent woman and that the ICE agent committed murder, which is what many of you have said explicitly and some of you have said implicitly.
That is Vance at his very, very best. Tony Katz today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. And as this presser has been going on, that's exactly what's been happening. Trying to engage gotcha kind of questions. The argument here is what this woman did and why aren't we discussing that? And an investigation should look into the shooting and whether or not it was a good shoot. That makes perfect sense. That the Attorney General is going to be creating a new position, a Deputy Attorney General, to focus on these issues and focus on what J.D. Vance, the Vice President, refers to as a network that is built to engage in violence against Immigration Customs Enforcement and others. So this is happening from the White House briefing room. Let's take it back to the Vice President.
Treated as some sort of federal assassin by so many of the people in this room. First of all, let me say about crime. You mentioned violence. One of the things we're proudest about is that you saw violent crime over the last year drop by 20%. Why is that drop by 20%? Is it because we're attacking our law enforcement officers, or is it because we in the administration are empowering our law enforcement officers to enforce the law? I think that's one of the ways you take down the temperature, is you make people feel more secure and safe in their person and property. That's why we care so much about protecting our law enforcement, because it accrues to the benefit of the entire national community. I think that we can absolutely talk about the ways in which, we can lower the temperature by discussing differences in a reasonable and rational way. Again, I'm happy to talk with any congressional Democrat or any of you about our immigration policy, about why I think it's necessary, about why I think it's in the best interest of the country, about why the President of the United States was elected to actually enforce the border for the first time in at least 4 years. So here's the problem. That's not the debate so many people are having. They are actively covering for people who are committing acts of violence against federal law enforcement. It is preposterous. The way to take down the temperature is to stop it. Have your debates about policy. Attack me. Attack the President of the United States. Don't attack our law enforcement officers. They are trying to do the job the American people demanded that they do. They are not policy actors. They are enforcing the law. They should be treated with a modicum of dignity and respect. And the fact that they're not is why incidents like yesterday happened. The one final point I'll make about this is, look, there's a part of me that feels very, very sad for this woman, not just because she lost her life, but because I think she is a victim of left-wing ideology. What young mother shows up and decides they're going to throw their car in front of ICE officers who are enforcing legitimate law? You've got to be a little brainwashed to get to that point to where you're willing not just to protest, that's fine, not peacefully protest, but throw your vehicle in front of legitimate law enforcement officers.
And that brainwashing is what we were discussing earlier. The left did this with President Trump. Threat to democracy, threat to this, threat to that, begging for a lone wolf. ICE agents are Nazis. ICE agents are engaged in violence. It's un-American. That part is also true. More to get to. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz today. I'll bring you a couple more minutes of this presser right here.
Situation on the ground, on the streets. What's your message also to those protesters who saw that video in a completely different way than you saw that video?
Well, first of all, I think if you watch every angle of that video, there is one angle where if you squint, you can maybe tell yourself that it's not clear what happened. But when you look at all angles of that video, it is very clear that her vehicle went right for the guy. She actually collided with him. And then that's, of course, when he fired his shots. That's obvious, okay? So what I'd say to the protesters is, by all means, protest peacefully, but make this about ideas. Make this about disagreement with our policy. Don't use your protest as a justification or an encouragement for people to go and incite violence and participate in violence against our law enforcement officials. To the people on the ground in Minneapolis, meaning the local officials in Minneapolis, from Tim Walz on down, I'd say, look, why can't you just disagree with a given piece of immigration policy without turning law enforcement into the enemy? And think about, for example, a criminal law where a police officer goes and arrests somebody because they violated a criminal law. If you're mad about that, go and protest the politician who passed that law. Don't attack the police officer who's just doing their job. We had a wide open border under Joe Biden. I happen to think it's a good thing the President of the United States has closed it down. If you think that's a bad idea, criticize this administration for a policy decision. Don't attack our people for enforcing the law, because I guarantee you go to ICE, there are black people and white people, there are Democrats and Republicans, they are patriotic Americans who are trying to enforce the law. Attack me, lay off of our ICE agents.
Vance is winning every part of
in the blue, all the way, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice President. You called on Tim Walz to resign. Can you lay out the case as to why he should step down?
Well, I think Tim Walz should resign because it's very clear either that he knew about the fraud in Minneapolis, he knew about the welfare fraud, or at the very least, he looked the other way. I mean, this is not like Lex Luthor, right? This is not movie villain fraud. This is the lowest IQ possible fraud. This is, we're going to take the absence of kids and set up a daycare center where there are no children, and we're going to call our early childhood education center the Quality Learning Center. By the way, if you can't spell learning, maybe you shouldn't be in early childhood education. But people got rich off of this. We know that there were schools who either had no enrollment or at least they overstated their enrollment. Tim Walz, either it was unbelievable incompetence or he was in on the fraud. That's one of the things we're going to get to the bottom of.
That's what an investigation should tell us.
Mr. Vice President, can you explain the difference between this Associate Attorney General and a special counsel? And do you envision this being a permanent position or have more of a limited scope?
Well, it's going to be permanent until we get to the bottom of what's going on. So I think it's going to last for at least the remainder of the administration. What's different about it from a special counsel is, if you remember, the Jack Smith case where the special counsel was found unconstitutional, one of the big issues there is that that person was not an appointed person, completely aside from all the other issues that the person was a lunatic and that the case had no merit. There was a fundamental constitutional issue, which is that he had not been appointed by the president and he had not been confirmed by the United States Senate. An assistant attorney general, what that's going to allow us to do is appoint this person, have them confirmed by the Senate. That's one difference. The more substantive difference is that this person is going to be part of a very broad interagency White House that's being led from the President of the United States on down. And that's going to give them the resources, the access to material and information to make this person more effective. I think a lot of people have asked, how are you really going to get to the heart of the fraud? We've been asking ourselves that question for the past couple of months, and we think this is the critical piece at the Department of Justice to really ramp this fraud investigation into high gear. In the red tie, yeah.
I'm going to do one more of these. And
I want to ask, what's your message to far leftist agitators who feel emboldened to obstruct ICE activity in Minnesota and around the country?
Well, I think they shouldn't feel emboldened because now they have an assistant attorney general who is going to prosecute and investigate their fraud and their violence more aggressively than it has ever been investigated in the United States of America. We are doing so much
as long as it's
to
within
try
the law,
to
I'm good.
find the financing networks and the domestic terrorism networks that legitimate this violence, that fund this violence, and that, of course, engage in the violence. These people should not feel emboldened because they have, for the first time, maybe in American history, an administration that is not going to tolerate political violence of any kind from anywhere.
Yeah. It's not clear today that the entire weight of the federal government is behind these ICE agents and this ICE agent in particular. There is still a federal investigation happening on the ground. Does that mean that they are not looking into this ICE agent at all? They are just focused on the woman who was in the car? What is the investigation if the federal government has already determined that its weight is behind this ICE investigation?
So what do you mean? when you say investigation, do you mean investigation of the shooting yesterday or of the fraud that's happening in Minneapolis?
Yesterday.
Okay, look, DHS, as I understand it, has an investigation already ongoing. I know that other organs of our government are looking at this. So yes, there's certainly an investigation that's happening right now. But as part of the broader fraud investigation, a lot of what we're doing with the Department of Justice has already started. We've got over 1,500 subpoenas. We've got people this morning, actually, we're going door to door to actually knock on some of these fraudulent care centers, these fraudulent social services organizations to get to the bottom of what's going on there. So the investigation in some ways has already been ramping up into the anti-fraud element for at least a few weeks. What we're trying to do is supercharge it and make sure there's a designated person within the Department of Justice who completely controls that particular focus.
So, all right, because when I first heard him talking about, I'm like, why do you need another position? What is why can't the DOJ just handle it? And as he's explained, it's like, okay, that is what's happening. You just have a point person, but this is the DOJ handling the thing. Investigate. But, when you say investigate more aggressively than ever before, within the confines of the law, please. I am not interested in showing the man and I'll show you the crime. I'm interested in investigating the crime and see who is guilty of it and then prosecuting those people. And yes, if they're citizens and they're guilty, jail. And if they're not citizens and they're guilty, deportation. That's my take, and I'm sticking with it. Guys, I appreciate you being here. I got to run. I got to get ready for what's next. It's coming up really, really quick. Go to WIBC.com and you can listen to the rest of the show. I'm going to let that press conference continue. I'm going to get into some other subjects really quick. I appreciate you guys very, very much. And we will talk again tomorrow. Guys, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Take care.